Welcome back to Unlimited Recaps. Today, we'll be diving into a thriller mystery film from 2019, Fractured. The movie begins with Ray is driving home with his wife Joanne and his daughter Perry, but things aren't exactly cheery. As has become usual in their marriage, Ray and Joanne are having yet another quarrel. This one is about Joanne's parents not liking Ray and giving him wine even though they are aware that he is in recovery from addiction. Ray needs to remind Joanna that this is part of his healing after his first wife Abby died in a vehicle crash he caused many years ago. In reality, this dispute started when they arrived late for dinner as a result of Ray's slow driving. While Joanne is beginning to believe that their marriage is doomed and that they should embrace the truth, Ray is trying to make things better. Perry interrupts their quarrel abruptly, saying that her music player has stopped working. Ray performs a nice little song to distract Perry because he forgot to bring new batteries. She likes it until she says she has to go to the restroom. A petrol station is visited by the family. Ray goes shopping for coffee, soda, batteries for Perry, and 2 tiny bottles of booze while Joanne takes her to the restroom. Ray tells Perry the store ran out of batteries and leaves the batteries behind because the clerk won't take credit cards. Perry notices she has misplaced her compact mirror as they are about to depart. Ray glances in the rear seat and complains about the filth as Joanne inspects the restroom. As everything is going on, Perry comes upon a stray dog while meandering by a construction site. Ray runs to Perry when she calls for aid. In an attempt to frighten the dog away, Ray throws a boulder, which startles the animal and sends Perry plummeting into an open pit. Ray follows her and jumping in and gets knocked out. A voice says, "They're both gone" to him. Joanne is at the pit weeping over the dead Perry when he wakes up. Ray is first devoid of feeling, but he gradually accepts reality and witnesses Joanne holding their wounded daughter. He delicately raises Perry, who has a fractured arm, and they return to the vehicle. She also wants to phone 911, but Ray claims he can bring them to the hospital faster than it will take for an ambulance to arrive because he remembers seeing a sign for it earlier. Ray lets himself drive as he hasn't in years since it's an emergency, making extremely risky maneuvers to pass vehicles in front of him. Joanne, who had believed Ray wouldn't fight for his family after the argument, feels proud of him for this. Ray informs the hospital receptionist that he is experiencing an emergency, but all he is told to do is sit and wait along with everyone else. Angry, Joanne demands that Ray get their daughter a doctor. He hesitates for a moment before signing Perry in. The receptionist gives Dr. Bertram information about a different patient, mentioning Perry's blood type and age. Ray returns to Joanne and uses her scarf to assist Perry stay cool. Joanne says she's sorry for yelling at him, thanks him for going swiftly, and they laugh together, realizing it's been a long time since they've laughed. Ray visits a vending machine with a cold beverage while Joanne laments her neck ache. He sees an ambulance pull up with 2 bodies in it and takes off with an organ box. They are shortly called to fill out Perry's details while they wait for the doctor once he returns with the soda. The secretary probes Ray on a number of topics, including as his work, drunkenness, and his ex-wife. Her parents oppose her request that they donate their organs. They learn after a protracted questionnaire that the hospital does not take Ray's insurance. He says he will use an ATM and then pay cash. After consulting with an administrator, the secretary dispatches a nurse to admit Perry. Ray hears the secretary discussing Perry's details with Dr. Bertram over the phone. Shortly after, Perry finds herself on a bed. Dr. Bertram shows in to examine her, comforting her with soothing words. After Ray relates what transpired, Joanne is surprised to hear about the dog because Ray had not previously brought it up. Following the examination, Dr. Bertram requests that the nurse give Perry some medication while he speaks with the parents. It appears that he is concerned about potential internal damage and wants to perform a costly CAT scan. Ray is unconcerned he will cover Perry's expenses. Ray dismisses Dr. Bertram, saying he's okay, when he inquires about the scratch on his head, which he was unaware of until now. A short while later, Nurse Volk delivers Perry a cuddly toy to keep her distracted as they take her for the scan. He also makes note of the fact that Dr. Bertram doesn't smile at random people. Ray returns to the waiting area to nap, but Joanne rides the elevator with Perry and the nurse as the patient can only have one visitor go with them to the lower levels. A few hours later, Ray is startled out of his slumber when he is pointed out to have been chatting by another man. Ray heads to the reception counter to inquire about Perry after briefly examining his forehead scrape on the bathroom mirror. However, there's been a shift change, so there's a new employee, and Dr. Bertram has left as well. Ray is told to wait, but the receptionist offers to check on Piri's scan and doctor. Ray becomes even more nervous when a woman tries to strike up a conversation with him in the waiting area. When he dashes back to the front desk to ask again, the agent there is unable to locate Piri's name in the database. She is surprised when Ray offers to pay in cash because it is not permitted. Ray gets angry and asks to know where Piri is as his forehead scratches and bleeds. Ray is even more upset when the receptionist phones the lower levels and tells him there haven't been any pediatric patients in the previous 24 hours. He goes to the bed they were allocated earlier, disobeying her cautions, only to discover another family in there. Dr. Lucado and Nurse Jeff surround him when he makes a commotion and attempt to calm him down. Upon going over the day's documentation, Dr. Lucado doesn't see anything about Piri. After that, Ray locates the nurse who carried Piri to her bed. She says she hasn't seen anyone else with him and has simply attended to his injuries. Ray becomes enraged and accuses her of lying, which prompts Jeff and the nurse to sedate and take him away. Ray goes into a private office and tries to relax, but he's always searching for ways to counteract the sedative. He locates adrenaline, gives himself several shots, and smashes the office window to get away. He walks down the hallway disregarding the hammering in his head. As Ray looks for his family, he sees Volk, who is now disguised in medical garb. Jeff catches up before he can question him, which sparks a chase outside. After fooling Jeff into believing he has escaped, Ray hides in the rear of a truck and heads back to his vehicle. He runs over to a police cruiser while holding his daughter's toys and tells the authorities everything while displaying his ID in a family portrait. The police choose to look into it. They examine Piri's bed after seeing Jeff, who maintains that his actions were for hospital security. Dr. Lucado supports Jeff's account, so the officers give Dr. Berthram a call to get more information. Moving to the third floor, they want to inspect the CAT scan room, but Ray is adamant that he witnessed his family being brought to the lower floors. Ray accuses the hospital of hiding his family because the computer logs indicate that no scan was performed during the time he says Piri was there. As nurses wait for Berthram, they discover prior admittance records that demonstrate Ray was not alone. When Berthram shows up, he tells Abby that Ray said he was in an automobile accident and declined a brain MRI. Police grow suspicious as Ray reveals Abby has passed away. When Jeff advises looking through the surveillance footage, all that is seen is Ray. He notes bugs that Jeff attributes to the previous system, but he insisted that Abby was in front of the camera but didn't show up. Officers don't think there's a need to search the hospital anymore without a warrant. Ray, desperate to show that he is not a hoax, mulls over his options and finally decides that the gas station clerk should be able to corroborate his account. The police call the station and ask to speak with the clerk. At that point, a nurse discovers something Piri's yellow scarf and Berthram invites them to visit the emergency rooms. Even though there is some blood on it from Ray's forehead, Ray might have brought it himself, therefore it doesn't show the girl was there. Dr. Berthram explains to Ray that it's normal to get confused or mix things up after suffering a brain injury, which makes Ray lose it while he insists he's telling the truth. Dr. Jacobs is invited along by Lucado, who abruptly ends their conversation. Psychologist Jacobs says she wants to assist Ray in finding his family because everyone is concerned about what has happened to them. They have finally located a file, but it is Ray's, not Piri's, she tells Ray as they lead him into a private office. Ray becomes more tense as Jacobs presses him about Joanne, Piri, and the vehicle accident that claimed Abby's life. He keeps saying he hasn't had a drink since Abby's passing, which he puts all on himself. Jacobs chooses to explore the building site because he believes Joanne and Piri may have been victims of something. The clerk is nowhere to be seen, and the gas station is closed. The dogs find Piri's compact in blood that looks to be from a deceased person at the pit. Ray argues that it's because of his head injury, but the authorities dismiss this and proclaim the location a crime scene, CSI unit called. Dr. Jacobs assists Ray in remembering his past and discovers that there was no dog. Ray lost his fury with Joanne during a disagreement, inadvertently hurting Piri before shoving her away, which ultimately resulted in her death. Ray's numbness can be attributed to the mind, creating alternate realities following trauma, according to Jacobs. Ray hears a police dog bark and realizes the feral dog has returned just as an officer is about to arrest him for murder. Using Jacobs' key card, he locks everyone inside the gas station bathroom after attacking the police officer and stealing her gun. Ray uses Jacobs' card to enter the hospital through the rear door while driving carelessly in order to avoid being detected. He stops in front of the maternity unit, remembers that Abby was carrying a child when she passed away, and this helps to explain his dreams in which they're both gone. Then, in an attempt to blend in, he takes a doctor's white coat and uses the elevator covertly. Fortunately for Ray, Jeff also uses the elevator and has his own set of keys, so he can get to the lower levels even though he doesn't have one. When Ray threatens to force Jeff to turn on the elevator by removing the police revolver he had concealed in his pants, Jeff lashes out at Ray, initiating a fight. After much effort, Ray kills Jeff and takes the keys from him, enabling him to eventually get at his objective. Ray discovers the plush Volk gave Perry in a garbage bin on the lower level. Additionally, he witnesses surgeons leaving with boxes containing human organs, and when inspecting the rooms, he is astonished to discover empty corpses within. Ray comes to the realization that there is an organ harvesting ring operating, and that his family has been abducted to be used as a commodity to be sold after recalling all the talks he's heard previously and the things he witnessed outdoors. Ray ultimately finds Perry in this chamber, where Lucado is going to operate on her, as he dashes down the hallway. Ray checks on his daughter, who is thankfully only asleep and unharmed, and threatens everyone, forcing them to retreat. Joanne is also close by. She was medicated to keep her out of the way and is now dozing off in a wheelchair. Ray makes a desperate move and blasts the tank with sleeping gas, setting off a small explosion and a fire, after the doctors and nurses rush to stop him from taking his family away. Ray, who is fine but woozy, puts Perry in Joanne's arms, and they wheel out of the room, shooting Volk and anybody else who tries to stand in their way. The family escapes the building quickly before the cops show there thanks to a quick trip in the elevator, and the whole story is eventually revealed as Ray drives off singing to his wife and kid. Ray had killed his family and then had a delusion that he was transporting them to the hospital. Jacobs had been correct. The bodies Ray saw were typical. He had only imagined their emptiness. The lowest level just so happened to be the morgue. He'd been completing an autopsy on a regular patient when he found Lucado, but Ray's brain had changed it to Perry, so now he was carrying a stranger in the back seat of his automobile. Joanne and the genuine Perry have spent the entire time in the car's trunk. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel.